The kingdom of Ziara had grown tense. The once lush gardens were wilting, streams ran lower, and the air carried a faint scent of dust. Crops had failed again, despite the efforts of countless farmers. The people whispered of famine, of empty stomachs and hungry children. The king moved from chamber to chamber, his golden eyes shadowed with worry. Every day brought new reports of food shortages, of trading routes cut off by war, and of distant planets refusing to sell their grain. Even the royal kitchens struggled to provide meals suitable for nobles, let alone the people. Princess Salira watched from her tower window, her hands clasped together. Her heart ached not for herself but for the people of her father's kingdom. She had felt the pain of hunger personally, and she knew what it did to the body and spirit. She had spent weeks now eating the simple foods Daniel had brought her, and she felt stronger than she had in months. She had gained some color in her cheeks, her strength returning slowly, but she could not ignore the larger suffering around. Her Daniel stood nearby, his pack now carrying more rations and small portable items from Earth. He had learned quickly how to adapt his limited supplies, combining dried grains, dried fruits, and powdered spices into meals that could sustain a person with little else. He had also begun studying the alien foods, trying to understand why they failed to nourish the princess properly. It was a puzzle unlike anything he had seen before. The crops were rich in appearance, but lacked the life force necessary to sustain the body. The humans called it nutrient density. The aliens had no term for it. The princess called him to her chambers that morning. Her voice was soft but firm. "Daniel, I wish to see more, not only for myself, but for my people. If your foods can restore my strength, perhaps they can help others as well." Daniel nodded. "It will be difficult. My supplies are limited, and the palace kitchens are not equipped for Earth methods. But if we plan carefully, it is possible." They began experimenting in secret in a small chamber near the kitchens. Daniel mixed Earth's ingredients with alien produce, showing Salira how to cook grains properly,
how to add flavor and nutrition.
Even when the base food was weak, she learned quickly, her sharp mind absorbing his instructions like a sponge. She chopped, stirred, and tasted, correcting mistakes and learning to balance flavors. The two of them worked side by side for hours, and slowly the smell of real, nourishing meals filled the chamber. Meanwhile, the nobles were growing more restless. They had heard rumors of the princess spending time with the human soldier, of strange new smells and tastes emanating from her private chambers. Some were outraged. "A mere soldier dares to teach a royal how to eat." One noble hissed too. Another, "What arrogance! What danger to our traditions!"
Ow.
Others were frightened. "If the king allows this, it will set a precedent. Next, humans will claim positions of power, seats at the council." But the princess refused to listen to them. When one of her attendants whispered caution, she replied, "I will not let fear govern the life of my people. Hunger will not wait. For tradition, if this human can help, we will try." The king himself heard whispers and grew suspicious. He called the princess to the throne room. His voice was cold, his tone questioning. "Salira, you spend time with a human soldier. Do you risk your place, your dignity, for him?" The princess stood tall, her silver hair catching the light. "Father, our people are starving. The foods in our kitchens, as glorious as they are, cannot sustain them. Daniel's knowledge, his earth foods, have strengthened me when nothing else could. If his methods can save lives, should we not use them?" The king's golden eyes narrowed. "A soldier? A human? They are fragile. They do not understand our ways." "Perhaps not," she replied firmly, "but they understand life. That is enough." Daniel waited in the corridor outside, unsure what the king's response would be. He had risked much by helping her, and he could feel the tension in the air, like a storm. When the princess emerged, her expression was resolute. "Father has agreed," she whispered to him. "You will have access to the royal kitchens. Use your knowledge. Show them what we can do." The palace kitchens were vast, filled with glittering utensils and trays of alien foods. Daniel looked around, seeing a mixture of despair and opportunity. He began working immediately, organizing, ingredients teaching the kitchen staff to combine foods in ways they had never tried before. Salira helped him, her hands moving with confidence. Her mind focused on the people she loved. The first test was small, 100 servings of nourishing meals, enough for the palace staff and attendants. Daniel mixed earth grains with alien roots, added preserved fruits, and used small amounts of spices to enhance flavor. When the food was ready, the staff hesitated at first. They had been trained to see human methods as crude. But when they ate, their eyes widened. Strength returned to their faces, and energy to their bodies. Word spread quickly. Excitement grew. Daniel and Salira expanded their efforts. They began planning meals for larger groups, working late into the nights. Salira traveled to the fields, with Daniel teaching farmers how to process crops differently, how to combine weak ingredients to create meals that sustained life. She spoke to the people directly, showing them the joy and care behind each meal, explaining that the human soldier had given her strength and wanted to share it with all. The nobles could not ignore it any longer. Some were furious, some secretly impressed. Whispers of rebellion spread among the more traditionalists. "The princess has given him power," one noble said bitterly. "Soon the king himself may favor this human over us." The king watched, quietly from his throne, observing the results. His people grew healthier, more energetic. Famine was no longer imminent. The golden hue of life returned slowly to the palace gardens, and with it the king could not deny the truth. Daniel's knowledge had saved the kingdom from despair, yet he remained cautious. He called Daniel into his chambers. The soldier bowed deeply, unsure of what the king would say. The king's eyes were sharp. "You are human," he said, "yet you have saved my people. You've risked your life, your position, even the dignity of this court, for one goal: to feed my daughter and my people." "Why?" Daniel's voice was steady. "I do not do it for praise, Your Majesty. I do it because I have seen hunger, and I know what it does to the body and spirit. No one deserves to suffer when there is knowledge to prevent it. That is all." King studied him for long moments, then he nodded slightly. "Perhaps there is wisdom in your simplicity. You may remain in the kitchens and continue your work. But know this: your place here is owed to results, not favor. One mistake, and you will answer to me." Daniel bowed again. "Yes, Your Majesty." The king's gaze softened briefly toward his daughter. Salira smiled, quietly proud. She had defended Daniel, and now, together, they had saved the kingdom from the brink of famine. She understood more clearly than ever that strength came in many forms, not only in royalty or weapons, but in knowledge, care, and courage. As weeks passed, Daniel continued to teach the palace staff and the farmers. The kitchens became places of life and hope rather than ceremony. People laughed as they ate, their energy returning. Even the children of the court grew stronger, their small hands grasping the nourishing food. Salira walked among them, her own strength fully restored, her cheeks glowing with vitality, yet danger still lingered. The nobles who had whispered against Daniel before now plotted more subtly. They could not stop the food from sustaining the people, but they could try to influence the king, to find faults in the human, to turn the princess away. Every move they made was watched, and every small misstep could be exaggerated. Despite the tension, Salira and Daniel continued their work, bound together by the simple joy of giving life through food. Each meal prepared, each grain cooked properly, each piece of fruit shared became a silent act of rebellion against tradition and prejudice. They were united not only by hunger and survival, but by trust and respect. The palace slowly transformed. Where once the halls had been tense and cold, now laughter echoed faintly through the kitchens and gardens. The people, seeing results, began to whisper their own thanks, not knowing how simple earth methods had made such a difference. Salira walked through the palace gardens each evening, sharing small morsels with the children and staff, always watching Daniel with pride and quiet affection at night. As the moons rose over the crystal towers, Daniel and Salira sat together. In the chamber they now called their kitchen laboratory, They shared small meals, tasting new flavors, laughing quietly over mistakes, and planning larger ways to help the people. Their bond was now deep, formed not just by food, but by shared purpose, trust, and courage. And beyond the palace walls, the nobles' plots simmered. They whispered of secrets, of dangers, of the insolence of a human who had won the princess's favor. But for now, their schemes could not undo what had been done. A kingdom saved from famine, a princess restored. To health and a bond between two unlikely friends, perhaps something more growing stronger every day. The palace of Ziara had changed dramatically over the past weeks. Where once the halls were cold and the gardens wilted, now there was movement, laughter, and the faint scent of earth foods blending with alien spices. The royal kitchens were no longer just symbols of ceremony, they were places of life, where the scent of warm bread, nourishing stews, and sweet fruits filled the air. Princess Sailora walked through the kitchens that morning, her hands moving expertly as she measured grains and stirred steaming pots. Daniel stood beside her, patiently instructing her on subtle adjustments, how a pinch of salt could bring out flavor, how roasting a root properly could preserve nutrients, how timing could transform a simple dish into a meal that could sustain life. The princess smiled as she worked, feeling strong, capable, and alive for the first time in many months. Outside, people of Ziara gathered in small groups near the palace. The famine had not ended entirely, but their strength had returned. Thanks to Daniel's guidance and Salira's determination, mothers fed their children nourishing meals. Farmers learned to mix alien crops with earth techniques, and the palace staff grew healthier by the day. The whispers that had once spread like poison were now met with disbelief. The results could not be ignored. Yet the nobles who had opposed Daniel did not give up easily. It failed to prevent the princess from learning from him, but they still hoped to turn the king against the human soldier. They plotted in secret, preparing to accuse Daniel of using forbidden techniques, of undermining tradition, of corrupting the royal bloodline. Their plans were careful and precise. Meant to strike at the king's patience and loyalty to his daughter, the tension in the palace grew as the king summoned Daniel to the throne room. The human soldier's heart pounded as he approached, bowing low before the golden-eyed monarch. The king's gaze was sharp, unyielding, and Daniel could sense the weight of judgment pressing upon him. "Daniel," the king said, his voice calm but cold, "you have taught my daughter. You have nourished my people, and you have changed the palace kitchens. Many see this as an insult to our traditions. How do you defend your actions?" Daniel met the king's eyes steadily. "Your Majesty," he said softly, "I only sought to save lives. I have studied your foods, your crops, and your methods. I have combined what I know from Earth with what is here to create meals that restore strength. I did not act to dishonor tradition, but to give life to your people and health to your daughter. The proof is in the results. Look at your people, they are stronger. Your palace staff more energetic. Your princess herself revitalized." King's gaze shifted, sweeping over the palace gardens visible through the high windows. The fields near the palace were greener than they had been in months. Small groups of people working together to cultivate new crops, their bodies no longer weakened by hunger. He saw the princess walking among them, her hair glowing in the sun, her smile bright. Slowly, he turned his gaze back to Daniel. "You speak boldly for a human," the king said, "yet your words carry truth. You have saved lives. You have given my daughter strength. And you have done so without seeking reward, without demanding honor, without fear." Daniel bowed again, his chest tight with emotion. "I seek only to serve your Majesty." The king's eyes softened, and for the first time, a small smile appeared on his face. "Then you shall continue. Your place here is earned, not by birth, but by courage, skill, and wisdom. Let none say otherwise." Relief flooded Daniel's chest. The weight of suspicion, of noble plots, and of his own fears lifted. He had been accepted not by tradition, but by merit and, most importantly, by the princess, who had believed in him even when others doubted. Sailora approached quietly, her eyes shining with pride and gratitude. She reached for Daniel's hand, holding it gently. "Father," she said softly, This is the man who restored my strength, who saved our people from hunger. I trust him.
Ow.
I will continue to trust him." The king studied his daughter, seeing the determination in her eyes. He saw not only her beauty, but her wisdom, her courage, her ability to recognize value beyond the strictures of tradition. He nodded slowly. "So be it. Let your actions speak louder than words, Salira, as they have always done.
But
And Daniel, you shall continue to serve, here in the palace and among the people, as you see fit." Daniel's heart soared, but he did not speak. Words felt small compared to the reality of the moment. Instead, he simply bowed and Salira squeezed his hand. A silent affirmation that their bond was stronger than ever. Over the next weeks, Daniel and Salira worked together more openly. They prepared meals for hundreds of people at once, combining alien crops with earth techniques. Farmers were taught new methods for soil enrichment, crop rotation, and proper storage. Children were given meals that strengthened their bodies, and the palace staff learned to cook in ways that balanced nutrition and taste. The kingdom slowly transformed, not only in body, but in spirit. People moved with purpose, laughed with genuine joy, and felt hope returning to their hearts. Even the nobles who had plotted against Daniel began to change their tune. Some still muttered in secret, but many saw the undeniable results. Their people healthier, the princess stronger, and the palace more vibrant than it had been in years. They could no longer deny the value of what the human soldier had brought. Some grudgingly admitted it aloud, while others stayed silent, realizing that opposition was pointless in the face of such success. One evening, as the twin moons rose, over the palace, Daniel and Salira walked together through the restored gardens. Flowers glowed faintly under the moonlight, streams ran clear and bright, and the scent of baking bread from the kitchens mingled with the sweet alien aromas. Salira turned to him, her eyes reflecting the moonlight. "Daniel, when I first met you, I never imagined this," she said softly. "I was weak, starving, and afraid. You brought me strength, hope, and joy. You showed me that life can be simple and yet powerful. You changed everything." Daniel shook his head. "I only showed you what humans know. You did the hard work, princess. You believed, you acted, you taught others. Without you, none of this would have happened." She smiled, reaching for his hand. "Then we did it together." From that moment, their bond was undeniable. They worked side by side, not only as teacher and student, but as partners in purpose. Their laughter echoed in the kitchens, their ideas shaped the palace gardens, and their shared meals became a symbol of unity between human and alien, between tradition and innovation. The king observed them quietly. He saw the princess walking, with a confidence he had not seen in months, her eyes bright, her smile radiant. He saw the human soldier beside her, not as a servant or an outsider, but as an ally, a friend, and someone who had earned trust and respect. Slowly he nodded. Perhaps there was wisdom in looking beyond old prejudices, beyond rank and birth. Perhaps strength came not only from blood, but from courage, knowledge, and heart. In the weeks that followed, Daniel was given a small command. Within the palace, not as a noble, but as someone trusted with the well-being of the people, he trained others in his methods, sharing earth techniques that improved farming, food preparation, and nutrition. The kingdom's harvests improved steadily, the people's strength returned fully, and the threat of famine became a memory of the past. Princess Salira stood beside him in every step. Together, they oversaw the preparation of meals, the restoration of fields, and the training of workers. Their partnership was admired by many, respected even by nobles who had once opposed them. And in private moments, they shared quiet meals, tasting new flavors, laughing over small mistakes, and planning ways to make life better for all their people. One evening, as the palace rested under the gentle glow of the moons, Daniel and Salira sat together in the garden, sharing a simple earth bread he had baked. They leaned back against the soft grass, watching the stars glimmer in the night sky. "I never imagined I would find so much joy in something as simple as food," Salira whispered, And I never imagined I would meet someone who could change everything for me. Daniel took her hand gently. And I never imagined I would find a place where I could make a difference, or someone who would trust me completely. She turned her eyes toward him, the glow of the moons reflecting in her silver hair. Then we have both found what we were searching for. The kingdom of Zyara, once shadowed by hunger and fear, now thrived. People walked with strength, children played with laughter, and the palace echoed with joy. The princess's beauty was restored not only in appearance, but in spirit. And at her side stood a human soldier, once an outsider, now a hero, a teacher, and a friend, perhaps something even more profound. Together, they had faced famine, suspicion, and doubt. Together, they had brought life back to the kingdom, taught the value of courage and knowledge, and shown that strength comes in many forms. And together, they had found something rare and precious: trust, respect, and the quiet beginnings of love that transcended worlds. The stars above seemed to shine brighter that night, as if the galaxy itself recognized the bond formed between a human and an alien princess, a bond born of kindness, courage, and the simple act of sharing food. In the quiet of the palace gardens, under the twin moons of Zyara, Daniel and Salira smiled at each other, knowing that their journey had only just begun, but that together they could F. The palace gardens were quiet beneath the twin moons of Zyara. Princess Salira walked slowly along the glowing flowers, her silver gown brushing against the grass that shimmered faintly under the nightlight. Beside her walked Daniel, keeping a respectful distance, yet close enough that she could hear his steady steps. No guards followed them now, only one attendant at a distance, pretending to busy herself with the flowers. Though everyone knew she was there to watch, Salira held in her hands a small piece of earth bread Daniel had shared with her earlier. It was plain compared to the jeweled dishes her people crafted, yet she held it carefully, almost tenderly. She took a small bite, chewed slowly, and then closed her eyes. "Simple," she murmured, "but it feels true. Why does it taste better than all the golden fruits on my table?" Daniel gave a small smile. "Because it is made to fill both body and heart. Humans bake bread not to impress, but to share. On earth, no home feels complete without it." Eyes softened as she looked at him. "Your people must live differently than ours. We make meals for beauty, for tradition, for ceremony. Yet in doing so, perhaps we forgot the heart inside it." She sighed, gazing at the moons. "When I eat your food, I feel not just stronger. I feel less alone." Daniel's chest tightened. At her words, he had never imagined that a soldier like him could matter to someone like her. Yet every day she came to him, every day she sought his food and his company. Their conversations had stretched beyond meals now. She asked about the forests of earth, the seas, the sky filled with birds. He painted pictures for her with words, and she listened as if she could see it herself. But as their bond grew, so too did the whispers. In the court halls, nobles muttered in low voices. "The princess lowers herself to a human," one sneered. "What shame to let a primitive soldier feed her like a servant." Another whispered. "She glows again, yes, but at what cost? If she favors him too much, our houses will lose all influence." The bitterness spread like smoke. One night, 3 nobles gathered in a shadowed chamber. Their robes glistened faintly, but their voices carried malice. "The king is blind," the eldest hissed. "He sees his daughter gain strength, but does not see the chains she ties herself with. If this human rises further in her favor, we will all be lesser for it." "What do you suggest?" another asked. "Humans are fragile," the eldest sneered. "One mistake, one scandal, and the king will have cause to cast him out, perhaps even execute him." The third noble leaned forward, eyes sharp. "Then, let us set the stage. Soldier who feeds royalty as if he were her equal, such insolence cannot be hidden for long. The court will turn against him. When the king's patience breaks, he will be removed." They all agreed, their smiles thin and cruel. Unaware of these plots, Daniel continued his quiet meetings with Salira. Each time she appeared, he felt his heart lift. She was no longer pale and weak. Her cheeks glowed faintly with health, her steps were lighter, and her laughter returned. Sometimes, she laughed so freely that Daniel forgot the gulf between them, forgot that she was a princess and he only a soldier. One afternoon she asked him, "Do humans sing when they eat?" Daniel chuckled. Sometimes families sing during festivals. Children sing before meals. It makes the moment brighter. Her eyes sparkled. "Will you sing for me, Daniel?" His face warmed. "I cannot sing well, princess. My voice is rough." "All the better," she said softly.
Oh, sweetest, sweetest.
Truth sounds sweetest when it is not polished. So, under the soft shade of the garden trees, Daniel sang an old earth song about bread and harvest, about families gathering together. His voice was plain, untrained, but steady. Salira closed her eyes as he sang, and when he finished, she clapped her hands softly, smiling. "I felt the warmth of fire, the smell of bread, the sound of laughter," she whispered. "Your song gave me all that." "Thank you, Daniel." Moments like these grew between them, small threads weaving into something deeper. But each moment was watched. Servants whispered to nobles. Nobles whispered to the king. Rumors twisted the truth, saying the humans sought to claim the princess's favor, perhaps even her heart. The alien king remained silent, but his gaze grew heavier each time it fell on Daniel. One evening, during a grand banquet, the tension broke. The hall was filled with nobles, their robes sparkling under crystal light. Food from across the galaxy was laid out, glittering dishes, glowing fruits, rare meats. The princess sat beside her father, her plate once again full but untouched. Daniel stood at his post with the other soldiers watching. Now he saw her eyes lower to the food, then drift toward him. She looked tired again, as if the feast before her was only another test. A noble seated near the throne sneered loudly enough for all to hear. "Perhaps the princess waits for her human to feed her," he said, his voice dripping with mockery. The hall went silent. Daniel stiffened. His hand clenched at his side, but he said nothing. Salira's eyes flashed with anger. She rose slowly, her gown flowing around her, and her voice rang clear. "Not speak of Daniel with such scorn. He has given me more strength than all of your jeweled plates combined." Gasps spread through the hall. Nobles looked at each other in shock. The king's face hardened, but Salira did not lower her gaze. She turned toward Daniel. "Come here." Every soldier froze. Daniel hesitated, but her command left no room. He stepped forward slowly, feeling every eye on him. His heart pounded. Like a drum, Salira lifted her hand. "Do you carry food with you now?" "Yes, princess," Daniel said softly. He reached into his pack and pulled out a small pouch of earth fruit slices. He offered it with both hands. She took it, and before the entire court ate one piece. Her eyes closed, and she sighed softly. "It is sweet," she said clearly. "It is real. It is life. It is because of this human that I stand strong before you today." The hall was filled with whispers, outrage, disbelief. The nobles seethed, their pride wounded. The king's jaw tightened, his golden eyes burning. But the princess stood firm, her chin lifted. "Mock him again," she said coldly, "and you mock me. You mock my life." Silence fell. Daniel bowed deeply, his face hot, his heart racing. He had never felt so exposed, so vulnerable. Yet in that moment, he also felt something stronger than fear. He felt honored later that night. Daniel walked alone in the corridors, the echo of the princess's defense still ringing in his ears. He knew the nobles would hate him even more now. He knew danger was coming. But when he remembered the way she had looked at him, the way she had defended him before them all, he could not regret a single step in her chamber. Salira sat by her window once more, the small pouch of fruit resting beside her. She touched it with gentle fingers, and her heart whispered a truth she dared not yet speak aloud. This human was no longer just a soldier to her. He was something more. Something her heart had been starving for, even more than food, and beyond. Her window in shadowed halls, nobles gathered again.
Ow.
Their anger burned hotter than before. The princess shames us all, one spat. This human must be removed. If the king will not act, then we will. Their plans began to take shape. Sharp and cruel, the royal court of Ziara was bright with golden light, shining from crystals hanging across the tall walls. The alien king sat on his throne, a strong figure with silver skin and sharp golden eyes, his presence making even proud nobles bow low. Around him gathered leaders from many worlds, for this was a rare gathering of peace. The galaxy had seen years of war, and now treaties were being signed. Humans were among the new guests, their first steps into such high company. Many in the court whispered about them, too young as a species, too rough, too simple, yet they had come with courage. At the side of the throne sat Princess Salira. She was known far beyond her father's kingdom. Her beauty was spoken of in songs, eyes the color of glowing blue gems, hair like flowing silver silk, and skin that shone faintly under light. Many noble sons had traveled across the stars only to see her once, and many had failed to win her heart. Yet behind her beauty was a secret the court tried to hide. She sat with grace, but her hands trembled. Her smile was gentle, but her lips were pale. Her strength was leaving her. The truth was simple, yet heavy. She was starving. The crops of her people had been poisoned during the last great war, and though farmers worked to restore them, the harvest never carried enough life force to feed royal bloodlines. She ate what she could, but her body rejected most of it, leaving her weak. Her father, the king, kept healers by her side, yet nothing changed. Day by day, she lost a little more light. And in the great hall that day, as the guests feasted, her plate sat mostly untouched. She only moved the food with her fingers, pretending to enjoy it so the nobles would not speak too loudly of her fading health. Among the crowd stood Daniel, a young human soldier who was not of high rank, only part of the escort sent by Earth to guard their diplomats. He had never seen such a hall in his life, the shining crystal towers, the alien music that moved like wind through air, the strange colors that glowed in the drinks. He felt small, almost invisible. Yet his eyes wandered, and when they rested on the princess, he froze. It was the way she tried to smile when she was clearly suffering. Daniel had seen that look before, on soldiers at war who pretended to be strong so others would not worry. His training told him to stand silent, to guard the diplomats. Yet he could not stop watching. She touched her food, then lowered her eyes, as if ashamed. He noticed how thin her hands looked. He thought of the meals back home, the smell of bread, the sound of pans on fire, the way food gave warmth even on the coldest nights. He thought of his mother packing him rations before he left Earth. Food was simple for humans, yet it was also survival, comfort, and love. And here was a princess who seemed unable to eat. Later that evening, when the guests were led to smaller chambers, Daniel found himself stationed near the royal hall. He watched as servants carried plates away, and he noticed again that the princess's plate was still full. No one spoke of it aloud, but he could feel the tension in the air. Knew hunger when he saw it. He knew weakness too, and he could not shake the thought. The night passed slowly, with the humans treated politely, but not warmly. The alien nobles looked at them with cold amusement, whispering that humans were too new to be here. Daniel did not care about their words. His thoughts returned again and again to the princess. Finally, as his shift ended, he reached into his pack. He carried standard rations, compressed meals made for soldiers on long journeys. They were simple: dried meat, bread, biscuits, dried fruit, and packets of spices that humans carried even into war. Daniel smiled faintly. To others, it might look plain, but to him, it smelled of home. The next day, the court gathered again. The princess entered, her steps slow but graceful. Daniel stood at his post, watching silently, but inside his heart was restless. As the ceremony ended and guests began leaving the hall, Daniel saw a chance. The princess was walking with two attendants when she paused, her hand lightly touching the wall as if she needed to steady herself. Daniel hesitated, Approaching royalty uninvited was dangerous, yet something inside pushed him forward, Your Highness, he said quietly, bowing as deeply as he knew how. The attendants frowned, ready to push him back, but the princess lifted her hand. Her voice was soft, like a bell. You are human, she said, her words carrying curiosity more than anger. Yes, Daniel answered. I am sorry for speaking. Out of turn, but I noticed yesterday you did not eat much. The attendants bristled at his boldness, but the princess looked at him with surprise. Her eyes narrowed slightly, then softened. You notice what most pretend not to, she whispered. Her voice was gentle, but there was weight in it. What is it you wish to say, soldier? Daniel hesitated, then reached into his pack. In Earth, when someone is hungry, we share food. I thought perhaps you might try something different. It may not be fitting for royalty, but it kept me alive through war. He pulled out a small ration bar, wrapped in silver. He broke it open, letting the faint smell of dried fruit and grains rise. To him, it was ordinary. To the aliens around, it was strange, almost laughable. The attendants sneered. You insult her with this crude thing? One hissed, but the princess raised her hand again. Her eyes were fixed on the bar, curious. Give it to me, she said. Daniel stepped forward and placed it carefully in her palm. She lifted it, sniffed it, and for a moment her face showed doubt. Yet she took a bite. The hall seemed to freeze. Her eyes widened. She chewed slowly, then closed her eyes. The color in her cheeks shifted faintly, and her lips parted in something close to wonder. It has life, she whispered. It does not taste of ash. It is simple, yet it warms. She took another bite, then another, ignoring the shocked looks around her. When she finished, she opened her eyes, and for the first time in many months, there was a spark in them. Daniel bowed his head. It is only human food, Your Highness, nothing more. The princess looked at him for a long moment, and then a faint smile touched her lips. Nothing more? Perhaps for you. For me, it is the first time in many months I feel full. She handed the empty wrapper back to him, her fingers brushing his. What is your name, human? Daniel, he answered softly. Daniel, she repeated, as if testing the sound. Then, turning to her attendants, she said firmly, Do not speak of this with mockery. This soldier has given me something our whole court could not. Respect him. The attendants bowed, though their faces were tight with displeasure. Daniel stepped back, his heart beating faster than it had in battle. He had not expected thanks, yet he had seen it in her eyes. For the first time since he arrived, he did not feel like a stranger in the alien court. He felt seen that night. Whispers spread through the palace. The princess had eaten human food. The king heard, and his eyes darkened with suspicion. Did not trust humans, not yet. But he could not deny the truth. His daughter's weakness had eased, even if only a little. The court stirred with curiosity and doubt. Some nobles mocked the idea, others feared it. Yet in the silence of her chambers, Princess Celira thought of the human soldier with the soft voice and simple gift. She thought of the taste of the strange food, the warmth that filled her, and for the first time in a long while, she felt hope flicker within her, and Daniel, lying awake in his quarters, thought of her smile. He had come only as a guard, a nameless soldier, but now he felt the beginning of something he could not yet name, a bond, born not from war or politics, but from the simple act of sharing food. The palace was quiet when dawn touched the crystal towers. Princess Celira sat by her window, gazing at the gardens below. The air smelled faintly of strange blossoms, but her mind was far away. The taste of the human food still lingered on. Her tongue, it had been simple, rough compared to the delicate dishes her people prepared, but it had been real. For the first time in months, she had not gone to sleep with the hollow ache of hunger gnawing at her. Her attendants entered with silver trays of breakfast. The meals were crafted beautifully, glowing fruits and finely cut meats, but Celira only looked at them with quiet sorrow. She touched a piece, then set it down. Her stomach turned away from it. She dismissed the servants with a wave, her voice gentle but firm. When the door closed, she whispered to herself, "Daniel." The sound of his name on her lips surprised her. He was just a soldier, a human stranger, yet in her memory, he stood brighter than any noble in her father's court. Elsewhere in the palace, Daniel prepared for another long day of standing guard. He tightened his uniform, checked his sidearm, and joined his fellow soldiers. The other humans spoke with each other about how the aliens looked down on them, how the palace food was strange and tasteless compared to Earth meals. Daniel listened quietly, though his thoughts were far away. He thought of the princess's eyes when she had eaten his ration bar. He thought of the faint color that had returned to her face. He had not saved her life, but he had given her something she had needed. That thought filled him with a pride he could not explain. The day moved slowly. Diplomats discussed treaties. Nobles exchanged polite insults, and soldiers waited in silence. Daniel stayed near the great hall, his eyes scanning for danger, but his heart leaped when he saw her again. Princess Salira walked in, her steps graceful, her silver gown trailing behind. Her eyes passed over many faces, but for a moment, just a moment, they paused on him. It was enough to make Daniel stand straighter. When the gathering ended, Daniel did not expect anything more. He returned to his post outside the side corridors, where few passed. But as he stood alone, he heard soft footsteps. Turning, he saw her Salira herself, walking toward him with only one attendant behind. Daniel froze. He bowed low. "Your Highness," he said, voice steady though his heart raced. The princess lifted her hand. "Rise, Daniel." The way she spoke his name carried warmth, as if she had practiced it. He straightened slowly, meeting her gaze. She studied him for a long moment, then said softly, "Yesterday, what you gave me. It helped. I feel stronger today. My father does not believe in such things, but I cannot deny it. I wish to try." "More?" Daniel blinked, almost in disbelief. "More of human food?" "Yes," she answered. "If you have more, I would see what makes your kind endure so much. They say humans can survive on any world, on any soil. Perhaps this is why." Her lips curved in the faintest smile. "Will you share with me again?" Daniel's hands tightened at his sides. He carried a few more rations, always prepared. He nodded and reached into his pack. "Of course, Princess." He pulled out a small packet. One held dried meat strips and a small pouch of spice powder. He broke the seal, and the smell of smoke and pepper filled the air. The attendant wrinkled his nose in disgust, but Salira leaned closer, curious. Daniel offered it with both hands. She took a piece, studied it, then placed it on her tongue. For a moment she frowned, as if the rough texture surprised her. But as she chewed, her eyes widened again. She swallowed, then breathed out slowly. "It burns," she whispered, surprised. "Yet it is alive. It makes me warm." She took another piece, then another. Her attendant shifted uncomfortably, but said nothing. Daniel smiled faintly. "That is called spice. Humans discovered long ago that food is not only for survival, it can bring joy. We add flavor: sweet, sour, salty, bitter, hot. Each one gives a different feeling. It reminds us that life is not only about staying alive, it is about living." Salira looked at him with wonder. "Your kind eats not just to survive, but to feel." "Yes," Daniel said softly. "On Earth, families gather around meals. Soldiers share food after battle. Lovers cook for each other. Food carries memory and comfort. It binds us together." Her eyes softened, as though she were seeing him in a new light. "That is beautiful," she said quietly. She touched her lips, then lowered her gaze. "Our people once sang that meals were gifts of the stars, but now food has become little more than medicine. We forgot the joy in it." Daniel hesitated, then reached into his pack again. This time he pulled out something different, a small pouch of dried fruit. The pieces were bright, preserved with sugar. Offered one to her. "This is sweet," he explained. She took it carefully, then placed it on her tongue. Her eyes lit up at once. "Sweet," she whispered, her voice almost childlike in surprise. "It is light, it sings." She laughed softly, the sound like bells. I had forgotten such a taste existed. Daniel felt his chest tighten. That laugh, that smile, it was more beautiful than any song he had heard. He watched her eat the fruit slowly, savoring each piece. For a moment there were no attendants, no throne, no war. Only a soldier sharing food with a princess. But outside their small circle, the palace was not blind. Other attendants saw, nobles whispered. That evening, in the grand chamber, voices rose in quiet anger. "The human feeds her like a servant." "Feeds a child," one noble sneered. "She lowers herself to taste their crude meals. It is shameful." Another muttered, "If the king sees, he will not be pleased. Humans are not fit to sit at our tables, much less feed our bloodline." Yet the princess did not care. She returned to Daniel again the next day and the day after. Each time he brought something: new bread, biscuits softened with water, dried herbs that gave aroma, small powders of salt and sugar. Each time she tried, and each time her strength returned a little more. Her cheeks glowed faintly once again, and her steps grew lighter. She spoke to him now not only of food, but of earth. She asked about oceans, about forests, about human cities full of light. He told her of home, of markets filled with smells and colors, of kitchens alive with laughter. She listened as if each word was a treasure. Daniel, in turn, asked her of her people's songs, of the stars they worshipped, of the gardens that once bloomed before the war. She told him, her voice soft with memory. Together, they shared more. Than food, they shared pieces of themselves, but shadows grew. The alien king heard whispers of his daughter spending time with a human soldier. His eyes narrowed, and though he said nothing yet, the court grew colder around Daniel. He felt their stares like knives. Yet when the princess came to him again, smiling softly, asking, "What flavor will you show me today, Daniel?" he could not turn away. He reached into his pack and gave her more. For her food had become more than sustenance. For him, it had become a bond he could not explain. That night, as the stars burned above the crystal towers, Daniel lay awake in his quarters. He knew he was treading dangerous ground. A human soldier and an alien princess was unthinkable. Yet he remembered her laughter when she tasted something sweet, the way her eyes glowed with new light, the way she said his name as if it mattered. He closed his eyes and whispered into the silence, "If this is wrong, then let it be. I cannot. Stop now." And in her chamber, Princess Salira held one last piece of dried fruit in her hand. She looked at it for a long moment, then smiled faintly and whispered, "Daniel." She ate it slowly, and for the first time in many years, she fell asleep with a full heart.